Geek Out!
Mm-hmm. 5 years have passed since young Tommy Jarvis saved his sister from the attack from killer Jason Voorhees. Time has not been kind to Tommy, and he's found himself being shipped to Pinehurst Halfway House. While there, a troubled youth murders a fellow resident. This tragic event seems to kickstart a rash of violent deaths in the surrounding area, but all seem to be focused around the halfway house. Could Jason be back to enact his revenge on poor Tommy Jarvis? Well, hey, welcome to another exciting episode of The Long Night at Camp Blood, a Geek Out retrospective of the Friday the 13th movie franchise. Today, if you couldn't tell based on just, well, the title or deductive reasoning, we are talking about Part 5, A New Beginning. And before we get into it real quick, I do want to make a special announcement because in the time between the last episode and this episode, the thing that actually kickstarted the idea of my doing this podcast got an update. The Friday the 13th video game that was kickstarted all those years ago finally has a release date. The full version will be released on May 26th, 2017, just in case you're listening to this in the future. But as of the recording, that is the end of this month. So with that, I thought I might try to band together with a bunch of the people that I played with during the beta and get them together to record a special episode. Maybe, I think the dates line up that the next episode that's going up is going to be about a week after that release date. So maybe get people together to talk about how the game is now that it's finally released. So look forward to that. But moving on from that, we are here, like I said, talking about Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. And in studio, I have with me a familiar voice for anyone that's listened to half, maybe even 2/3 of the shows on Geek Out, or the Geek Out Podcasting Network. I have host of Catching Up, the many-titled Beatles retrospective, the currently running James Bond podcast, which just got a new name, and I've already forgotten what it is, but he will enlighten us once I allow him to speak into his microphone. It is the lovely Sam Stone.
Hey, thanks for having me. And the current name, and who knows, it might change like everything else I do. The current name of the James Bond podcast is From Geek Out with Love.
That's right. That's what it was. I was impressed with it because once you said once you decided that you were going to do a string on James Bond, all I could not get James Bonding out of my head because it's such a good title, but it's already been done.
Yeah, the Mats beat me to it over on the Nerdist podcast network, but I think. I like the chemistry that me and Jake and Rich and sometimes Garrett have over on that one.
Yeah.
I think a week from today, when this thing posts, you'll see the third episode, which covers Goldfinger. So keep an eye out for that one.
Goldfinger.
He's the man, but he's not in this fucking film.
Yeah. So this is part 5. The second of the series to not feature Jason Voorhees as the killer. And I would say definitely at this point, taking into consideration just the first 5, least favorite. And looking back at the series as a whole, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably my least favorite overall. Do you have any opinion? Either any which way but loose?
Any which way I can. Let's see. New Beginning isn't. Here's the thing, and I've mentioned this on the main show. Jake has kind of echoed this sentiment. I feel like Chris is, to varying degrees, he's the most lenient about it. But I'm not the biggest Friday the 13th fan. I think they're really grindhousey, and not in the best way. They do kind of come off as schlock because they're pumping them out one a year.
Just about to pull back the veil a little bit. The only reason why you're the guest host on this episode is because you said, whatever, if you need someone, I'll do it with you. And I was like, cool. I probably won't be able to get someone for part 5.
If you need somebody's for part 6 through reboot, let me know. But having said that, having kind of like knocked, the Friday the 13th, having bit the hand that feeds on this program, I don't. By the same token, I don't think any of the Jason films are particularly unwatchable.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite as heinous as, say, like maybe Curse of Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm trying to think I would still say the worst Nightmare film is better than most Jason movies.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what's the worst. No. Okay. I would probably watch like some of the Jason films. Like I'd probably watch like Jason Lives or Takes Manhattan or X over
part 2. Or...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's typically seen as the worst. And I don't think, I've teased the idea of the next thing I do once I've exhausted Friday the 13th being Nightmare on Elm Street because it is my preferred series. I think that part 2 only gets a bad rap because it tried to diverge and people were like, no, we like what you set up in the first one.
Do you kind of feel the same way about, say, this one?
Yeah. And we'll get into it in a minute, but yeah, this one definitely does try to diverge, and that's where people didn't like it, which is funny because it's the entire basis of the fan base is from the divergence of the first movie. Because Jason's dead in the first movie. The fact that he's the killer and he doesn't become supernatural until the next movie, spoilers for a 30-year-old movie. It's probably 31 at this point. Because this is 32 now. This one.
Yeah. I keep forgetting it's 2017.
Yeah. I wish I could forget. But yeah, so that about covers the typical intro, how we know each other, how you know Friday the 13th. Do you have a particular favorite of the series?
I like the more ridiculous it gets. So again, Takes Manhattan and Lives are probably of the classic run.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, you have been known to say and agree with me, and I think Jake as well, that Freddy vs. Jason is arguably the best Jason movie.
Yeah, and if we're including Freddy vs. Jason in the Pantheon, which I believe you are for the sake of this program, it's hands down the best. I love how ridiculous Jason X gets.
Yeah.
That was one of the very last commentaries we ever did. It may be the last commentary we ever posted.
Possibly.
Yeah, because we never did we recorded 2 commentaries for a commentary series that would have premiered post Jason X, but we never posted it. No, what was the one we recorded? No, it was Young Frankenstein, because that's right, Gene Wilder died last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but no, I mean, this one, again, I think this one's fine. And when I look at movies like this, they are just about, nothing makes me think of going to the video store more in the early 90s than these kind of low budget, like Ernest kind of has the same effect. It's basically just the low budget, almost straight to VHS stuff.
Yeah. Ernest is basically just a family-friendly horror movie. Yeah. Specifically, Ernest Scared Stupid.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, it's got the same grindhouse feel to it. I totally agree. They all look like they could be directed by Sam Raimi.
Yes.
And this one, especially, I feel like Sam Raimi would have been right in the wheelhouse to direct that, especially with the zoom every time someone gets killed.
Yeah.
That they randomly stop halfway through the movie. So, all right. So to get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty, before we kind of do a play-by-play of the movie, this one was released March 22nd, 1985, almost exactly a month before I was born, and almost exactly almost exactly a year after the previous one was released. Again, like pretty much all the movies until Jason Goes to Hell, this one was distributed and I guess produced by Paramount Studios. The runtime is 92 minutes, which anyone keeping track, that is 1 minute longer than the previous installment. They got a whole 60 seconds of extra footage in this one, boys. Written by Martin I was so confident when I started saying this name, and then it just fell. Kit Trosser. I'm going to go with that. David Cohen, and Danny Steinman. So 3 writing credits. Martin and David got story by credits as well, if anyone cares about that. Silly to think that they would get it. But, well, I guess they're credited as being like, oh, let's try this new direction. Produced by Timothy Silver, who's a newcomer, and directed by one of the writers, Danny Steinman, who is also new to the series. This one was filmed in 3 different locations: Agora Hills, Beverly Hills, and Camarillo, California. The budget was $0.2 million fewer than the previous installment, coming in at $2.2 million, and embarrassingly grossed only $21.9 million. I say embarrassing because that is $12 million fewer and the second lowest grossing in the series. And now that I'm saying this, I realize that I forgot to do my research. I don't know what the lowest gross is.
I'm sure you'll get to it.
Yes. Yeah, I believe it is one of the upcoming movies, and so therefore I will make a note of that when it comes out. Hopefully it's not one of the previous 4.
I feel like, what's the one before Final Friday?
I believe that is New Blood. No. Final Friday is Jason Goes to Hell.
Yes.
So the one before that is Manhattan.
I feel like it's either Manhattan or New Blood.
Oh yeah, because that would have. It's probably the reason why they ended up selling the property to New Line Cinema, which is the first one produced by New Line is Jason Goes to Hell, the Final Friday.
Yeah, prompting a certain cameo.
So real quick, down and dirty, what happened in this movie?
I mean, outside of a kind of Wolfman-esque opening, or Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman-esque opening, because in the beginning of Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman, or no, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, 2 grave robbers accidentally revive the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. And you're Abbott.
I'm Abbott. Yeah. I love how in my own fantasy I'm just the least interesting. But
yeah, so we open on a young Tommy Jarvis,
reprised by the inimitable Corey Feldman.
Yes, who is only in the one scene. The character that he made famous, because he's the only one that's played it so far up until this the end of this cold open. Young Tommy Jarvis is in a graveyard and stumbles upon 2 grave robbers, or would-be grave robbers, digging up the grave of Jason Voorhees, just for him to come back to life and kill them, which I don't count at the end of the episode when I do the running tally of deaths. I don't count those 2 deaths, but kills them, scares Tommy awake. We find out that Tommy is now a 17-year-old young man, and he's being carted off to a halfway house for troubled teens.
Yeah. Impeccable hair from Mr. Jarvis as a young adult.
Half bowl cut, half mullet.
And he can
It's
pull
like
off
business
neither.
casual up front, party in the back.
Yeah. It's like elementary school up front, still elementary school in the back.
To the best of my memory, we don't actually know what's wrong with him. I mean, clearly we can deduce what's wrong with, but the movie doesn't tell us why he's.
And they kind of hint at it at the end of final chapter.
Yeah, like he's troubled from the experience of killing another human, but like. To my memory, we don't get a rap sheet on him. We don't know, like, oh, he's been carted around from foster home to foster home, although that's probably what is happening because his sister's too young to be a legal guardian by the end of the movie. Yeah. And we never hear about what happens to his sister, in this movie. She might be dead. She might be in her own halfway house. Who knows? I
don't think we ever see her again.
No, we only ever see her alongside Corey Feldman. So he gets put in this halfway home because I guess he probably isn't a criminal, but needs something more than just foster care. Yeah. He needs a safe environment to live in. As we soon find out, this is not a safe environment because There's one of the teens in this halfway house has a bit of an anger problem, and for some reason is trusted with cutting wood with a big axe.
Big old wood splitter.
Mm-hmm. And axes one of the other kids to death. Kind of an annoying kid, but like it's not his fault that he's mentally challenged.
There's also like different gradations of like response.
Yeah. Leave me alone!
It almost comes out of like nowhere. It's
Yeah.
just like, and honestly, and you get this in not just this film, but a lot of Friday the 13th movies. It's almost played for laughs.
Yeah. Well, I mean the whole idea of the story in its birth was a horror movie that could skirt that line of horror and comedy, which is another reason why Sam Raimi would have been such a great director, because he is so good at skirting that line.
Damn it.
Yeah. Sam Raimi for Friday the 13th. Although not now, because they're trying to be gritty and actually scary and straight up just 100% horror.
Kind of like what happened to Texas Chainsaw about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Boo. We need to get back to, like Edgar Wright was going the right direction. He made the comedies that had horror elements. We need someone to counter that. Anyway, whatever. But so played for laughs, murdering a mentally challenged individual.
A real gut buster, that one.
Oh,
No pun intended.
whoa, because he chopped his arm off.
Yeah, he goes for the back as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so naturally, the one boy dies. The other one gets carted off to jail. You decide which one. Sorry. Sorry. I just my funny bone is being tickled. But so and then that kickstarts a series of murders in the area. That evening, two Tommy Zuko wannabes, or
basically Ziggy and whatever the other guy is from like Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah,
like the two greasers.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Greasers in a car, and not even like a convertible. Stopped on the side of the road.
Like these guys have the budget for a fucking convertible.
Yeah, right. Actually, fun fact. I think this is the first of the series that does not feature a Volkswagen Beetle.
Huh.
I don't recall seeing one.
There is none, if I remember correctly.
And that's one of the staples of the series. There's almost always a Volkswagen Beetle.
Huh.
It's something that I learned in the 2 rewatches that I've done in the last 6 months.
Sure.
So the two greasers, Vinny and Lee or something like that.
Yeah.
Pete, way off.
Yeah.
Oh, Les was one of the grave robbers. Vinny and Pete. Pete, for some reason, has an obsession with saying rat-a-tat-tat, which I found really annoying. So I was very glad when he died. But so they get attacked while trying to fix their car. Well, after Pete goes into the woods and takes a shit like a bear.
Yeah.
Because bears shit in the woods.
Yes.
And then when the next morning when their bodies are being carted off, there's another little thing that's definitely played for laughs because the sheriff is like, I forget the exact line, but sheriff's like, oh, there's a fucking wacko, running around or something like that. And Roy Burns, the who I didn't mention earlier, is a paramedic who takes the dead body away.
He also takes away the body of Joey, the axe victim.
Yeah. Just pops up into the frame from presumably being knelt down at the body, and he's like, "You talking to me, Sheriff?" It's like, spoilers for anyone that doesn't know, but he's the killer.
Yeah. Yeah. And the inciting incident is the death of Joey. Again, spoilers for a 30-plus year film. Joey is at the very end of the film.
One of the last lines.
Yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, Joey was his son. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No one knew.
Yeah.
The only reason why we knew is because he has a picture of him in his wallet.
Maybe he was just a creeper.
Yeah.
I mean, he clearly was killing people left, right, and center.
Yeah.
This movie has, what, the highest body count?
Highest body count so far, at least. By about double. Because most of the other films before this are hovering around the 10 kill zone. Factoring in the 2 kills in the dream sequence at the beginning and Roy Burns' scene at death at the end, it's 21 kills. But yeah, so Roy Burns, a.k.a. Jason for this movie, pops up. You talking to me, Sheriff? No. Oh, thought you were talking to me. It's just, it's like the movie is being like, he's the killer. And like you see, they try to pull in a red herring with Raymond, who's like a drifter, but it doesn't work because he's only in like a scene and a half, and the half is where he dies.
You could argue they also try to argue that it's Tommy Jarvis.
Yes, and they do a bit of they do a much better job of being like, oh, but is it Tommy Jarvis? But regardless, they could have done even better. So yeah. So then some more people die. The drawback of it having such a high kill count is that it's hard for me to remember what's going on, because it's really just save for the first 15 minutes and the last 10 or 15 minutes, you don't go more than 10 minutes, or you don't go more than 5 minutes in this movie without a death.
It's almost clockwork.
Yeah, and I'll bring this up at the end of the episode. You know how I usually do the running tally of the killing spree. Killing spree is over half the movie in this one. You get the cold open, which I don't count, again, as I've said a million times already, because it's a dream. But Joey's death is almost the first kill of the killing spree. I'm not counting that one in the killing spree because it's not quote unquote Jason's kill. And the only reason why there's a 20-minute gap at the end of the movie is because the last 3 deaths before Roy Burns' death are all off screen, and I don't count those as part of the spree timeline because you can't tack down exactly when they died. But if you did factor in all of that, the killing spree is about 60 minutes, and the movie's only 92. But yeah, so
counting credits.
Yeah. So you have all that. So Roy Burns, aka Jason, because he's going so we don't even see the Jason mask until the end of the killing spree.
It's the final act is when you actually see the killer in full.
Yeah, and I mean that's harken back to the original ones. You didn't really especially the first 2, all you really saw were boots and arms, and that's fine. I like that. I like the continuation of the motif. But yeah, so a lot of people die. Very little character development happens. You have a punk rock chick that doesn't listen to punk rock music. While we were watching it together, while we were watching it, I was like, I just Mystery Science Theater style. I was just like, hey, okay, so we got a character. She's definitely a punk rock chick. She's got the whole look. She looks like Debbie Harry, basically. So make sure to get some stock music that we don't have to pay for because it's very low budget, but that she would listen to. Got it. Yes, perfect. Punk rock.
Might as well be the
Just
theme.
Loop that.
It might as well be the theme to the fucking Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum.
But that would cost too much. And then she starts doing robot dancing too, and it's like, what part of punk rock is this? But did want to make note the gentleman who runs the halfway house. I have his character's name here somewhere. I believe it was Matt.
Yes.
Matt, as we discovered while we were watching, because I had always recognized him. I was like, this guy's familiar. I've seen him somewhere. Sam ingeniously explained that he was actually the gentleman that you see at the beginning of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, who inspires the whole ensemble that Indiana Jones wears. He's the
dude that gives him his fedora.
Yeah.
You know, you lost today, kid, but that doesn't mean you have to like it.
Whoa.
Well, Matt loses a lot in this particular flick.
He loses a fight to a railroad spike.
Loses almost every kid under his charge.
Yes. And then also the deputy of the police force I noticed was the gentleman who plays David Arquette's father in the famous wrestling movie Ready to Rumble, who is also in the police force sheriff. He got promoted clearly by helping out the events of this movie. He got promoted to sheriff, had several children. One of them got really into WCW Monday Nitro. But yeah, so we meet. What was the little kid's name? Was that Reggie?
Yes.
Yeah, we meet Reggie's brother, Demon, and his girlfriend Anita, who likes to play tricks on him when he's in the outhouse.
Yeah, they both like to sing.
Yeah, really. Again, guys, we need them to sing, but we don't need to pay. We can't pay any money. Got it.
We need to fill,
baby.
We need to fill runtime.
Yeah.
Desperately. Make sure we hit that hour and a half.
Yeah.
And did you mention you haven't mentioned the pointless country bumpkin scene?
No, I haven't. Oh, so yeah. Again, when you're playing for laughs, sometimes you got to add characters, and when you realize your movie is only 75 minutes long, you got to add characters so you can stretch it a little bit. So with that, we get Ethel and Junior, who, oh dear God, are some of the most annoying characters in this entire franchise. Like the asshole prankster character, reoccurring character in these movies is one of the banes of my existence. Oddly enough, this movie doesn't have one of those, but it does have Ethel and Junior, who more than make up for it. Junior, most of Junior's lines are just parroting what Ethel, his mother, is saying, and like, oh my God, Sam strategically stepped out of the room to use the bathroom right during the worst scene of theirs, and part of me wanted to rewind it so that he had to suffer through it, but the other part of me didn't want to have to watch it again. But
luckily, compassion won out over spite.
Yeah, cooler minds prevailed. Compassion for myself, though.
Yeah. Self-preservation.
Yeah. But yeah. So literally, it's just like Ethel is like cooking some chicken or something, and she's complaining about the crazy kids at the halfway house. She's just like, no sons bitches, and then Junior's like, yeah, them sons bitches. It's like,
again, anything to elongate the runtime.
Yeah, it's awful. It's terrible, and it's fine because Junior later gets decapitated while he's riding around on his motorcycle, and Ethel gets a machete to the face and then drowned in her stew. Unfortunately, it was not boiling on the stove. It was just being made in the sink. But whatever, they died, and thank God. What other characters of note are in this movie?
I mean, those, all the kids. There's the nymphomaniac couple. There's the
oh yeah, actually, the nymphomaniac couple, oddly enough, probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. Jumping a little bit ahead, it involves my favorite kill of the movie, but But yeah, so like we have the couple that runs off into the woods to have sex, and then the girl just decides to hang out there naked for no reason, just laying on the ground, and then gets killed by Roy Burns. And then the guy gets belted to the tree, and that somehow kills him. And then that's where they kill Raymond for being a peeping Todd. Yeah. And then there's a barn. There's got to be a barn. It's got to be. It's a Friday the 13th movie.
There's got to be a dark and stormy night.
Yep. Although I did say you had mentioned early on while we were watching the movie that this was one of the better looking Friday the 13th.
Certainly than the last couple. Though I don't know how much I can level against Part 3D because they were. I mean.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
It's bound to not look as good when you're trying to do something fancy like that.
But I think a lot
especially
of it
back in that day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, and you're kind of alluding to it, is at least the first half of the film predominantly takes place during the day.
Yeah, one of the first movies to take place that much during the day. I think like the first part had a fair amount of stuff during the day, but like I'd say easily 80% of this movie is in daylight, and that helps tremendously when you're shooting on film, especially on a low budget like this, where you probably don't have that much equipment to be hauling around, big lights and stuff. But yeah, so, so people die. There's barn. They kick Roy Burns out of the top story of the barn, and he lands on a
Max
tractor.
Lanzes.
Falls down on a tractor.
Convenient spikes.
It's called a harrow.
Oh, well, harrow.
Harrow. It's a ground tiller, basically. Also, at a baseball game, it's what they rake across the dirt to smooth it out, and it's basically like a Zamboni. But Zambonis for ice. This is for like tilling the soil so you can plant.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then there's like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King level, extra endings.
Mm-hmm.
Although these are all fake outs essentially.
Yeah. There's basically two. Yeah.
But yeah, so we get one where Pam, one of the survivors, goes to see how Tommy Jarvis is doing in the hospital. He wakes up and stabs her with a machete. Oh no!
Yeah. Shock! Ah.
Yeah. Another one where Jason's there.
Well, the first one's the Jason one.
The first one's the Jason one.
First one's like, oh shit, I see Jason, and he's like, okay. And then, like the second time, Pam goes in and he stabs Pam, and then the third time, or no.
You see now I
it all kind of bleeds together, man.
Because it's not good.
No,
but yeah, and then the final ending. Tommy breaks the window of his hotel of his hospital room, and Pam runs in and is like, "Oh no, Tommy ran away!" And then like the door closes and you see him there. Somehow has Roy Burns' Jason mask.
And a machete.
Mask, and a machete.
That he got into the hospital.
Yep. Snuck it in his ass.
And man after my own heart.
And then that's where it freeze frames, cuts to black for the credits. Alluding to Tommy Jarvis now being the killer, much like the last one alluded to.
Yeah.
And much like the last one does not come true in the following film.
No, I mean, this is kind of... Because this is the middle installment of the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, right?
Yeah, worst Tommy, in my opinion.
Yeah. Probably the worst of the three.
Yeah.
But, again, not unwatchable. A lot of those Friday the 13th tropes are still there, even if it isn't Jason Voorhees himself.
Mm-hmm. So quick slapdash research. There wasn't a whole lot to be found online. probably just as much my own laziness as was just not there, not much being there. Wikipedia literally only had like 2 sentences on the production, and I expanded it a little based on some of my own personal knowledge. But so the writers, like we kind of mentioned earlier, tried to change up the style a little bit. This one trying to be a little bit more of a psychological thriller. And you see that, they're trying to get a little bit more into the head of Tommy Jarvis. Did they do a good job? Not really. But they tried. They get a gold star. And it was also meant to be the first of a new trilogy that would continue the divergence away from the Voorhees-centric past of the series. And going as far in this installment to actually push the setting as far away from Crystal Lake as we get, or almost as far away from Crystal Lake as we get throughout the whole series.
Yeah, don't forget outer space.
Yeah. While I was typing this up, I wrote the farthest away we ever get. Nope.
For now.
For now, yeah. We go to space. It's hard to get further away. You can just get more space.
Yeah.
And then the main note on the production end that I found online was that Corey Feldman couldn't make it due to his or couldn't be anything more than a cameo due to his filling obligations with The Goonies, which is what I had proposed while we were watching it, confirmed online, so it must be true.
Mm-hmm.
It was on Wikipedia. They can't make that stuff up.
Of course not.
Thing that I added from my own knowledge was that his entire scene was shot in a day and in his family's backyard.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like it. It almost looks like the Jason Voorhees grave in the prologue basically looks like somebody's like front yard Halloween trick-or-treater display.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it.
Yeah. Probably about as big a budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Impressive thing about this movie, though, it did debut at number 1 its opening weekend, beating out, peep this, Porky's Revenge, Mask, The Last Dragon, which is apparently a martial arts musical.
Yeah.
And
Mask is not to be confused with The Mask, by the way.
True. That movie came out like 10 years later. And it's apparently a biopic, but I don't actually know. I didn't click on the link to find out what it was about. And also Disney's Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend. Mm-hmm. I've never heard of that one either.
Probably why it didn't open at number 1.
Heyo. But then it had a sharp drop off and ranks number 41 in the year's total box office earnings. Unfortunately, again, I don't know how many movies came out that year, so I don't know if that's impressive or shit. But I feel like the other ones did better. Other horror movies that came out around the same time that year: Cat's Eye and Life Force. Life Force, a movie that has been featured on one of my favorite podcasts, How Did This Get Made, is about space vampires. Yeah. Critic Vincent Cantby of the New York Times wrote, "The fifth Friday the 13th film reiterates a chronicle of butcherings with even less variation than its predecessors," which, side note, I will agree with, because while I was going through with my list of the weapons that were used, it was like machete, 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 axe, 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 axe.
Meat cleaver, yeah.
Yeah. But then also road flare.
Yeah. I think the preferred method of death, if not like meat cleaver to the head, is machete to the torso.
Mm-hmm.
Just
or
like
throat.
The singular stab, you know?
And then continuing the quote from Mr. Cantby, "It's worth recognizing only as an artifact of our culture." Damn.
Well, artifact it is now.
Yes.
I think this came out the same year as the NES game, which is just an adaptation, I think, of like Jason 2 or Friday the 13th 2.
Yeah. It's not Rambo.
But at this point, Jason's kind of like, he's in the zeitgeist, you know?
Yeah.
And this film doesn't have him outside of the prologue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said as much in the last episode. I forget his name at this moment, but the producer was like, "Hey, man, slasher movies are starting to taper off. We need to, snip at this." And then Paramount was like, "We got one more in us." So they were like, "But let's see if let's mold a different story, but use the same name and kind of the mythos and kind of like what they tried to do with Halloween 3, and that also didn't work for them." Fine film, but probably would have been better if it had not been called Halloween 3.
Yeah, it gives it some baggage.
Yes. Some shoes to fill.
I also think, like, they kind of whiff on the psychological aspect of it, like focusing on Tommy, because I feel like the producers or whatever are like, more kills.
Yeah.
More kills.
Kids love kills.
Yeah, because apart from, like, Tommy looking like he's depressed most of the time, you get,
or
like...
constipated.
Or constipated. You can be depressed and constipated. Sometimes you're depressed...
Because you're...
yeah. Or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think you only get, like, one, like, hallucination from Tommy where he, like, imagines Jason standing among chickens.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
And then I complained about that because they wiggled the camera, like, right at the beginning of the cut, and I'm like, you could have trimmed those 2 frames off.
Got to get that runtime over an hour and a half.
Guys, seriously. Got to fill those seats.
We can't theatrically release this thing.
I wonder if that was...
It has to be over an hour and a half.
Well, to be named a feature-length film, it only needs to be 65 minutes long. Because Epic Movie is a feature-length film, and it's like 68 minutes.
Nice.
Because much like that, it was like, we gotta pump it out now, because all the jokes are very topical. People aren't going to get it by the time it comes out on home video. And it's true. Those jokes weren't even funny when the movie was in theaters. That's right. I said it. Bring it on, Epic Movie. What you going to do?
Yeah. Come on, Cal Penn.
Oh, I like him.
I do too. He just maybe that's one for the paycheck.
Yeah. Hey, he didn't have to work for another 6 months after that movie. Coming to the end, wrapping up with just some of the other things that I picked up from this cold open. This one's a short one. It's only 5 minutes and 50 seconds, and it's just that damn Tommy Jarvis dream. Location within universe, the Pinehurst Halfway House, which is still in New Jersey, but like I said, it's stepped away from Crystal Lake. So people in the town, specifically like the sheriff, still know who Jason Voorhees is, but it's not necessary. I think it's like the next county over or something like that. The next fictional county over. Timeline. This one takes place in 1989 because it's stated that it's 5 years after the events of the previous movie. The previous movie was the first time in several movies where it was actually present day, which means we are now 4 years into the future.
Which means for the future installments, you have to make sure that they keep up with that.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure they don't. That was part of the reason why I started keeping track of the timeline, because I was like, I know they have some time jumps in here. How well do they follow that? Then again, they don't do a whole lot of pop culture stuff, so it probably doesn't really nip them in the butt too much, except for maybe by the time 1989 rolls around, they're like, we aren't still listening to that punk rock music. Or maybe that's what punk rock becomes in 1989. I don't know. I was only 4. Okay, list of the kill count in this movie. 21 kills officially, but according to my record, 19. Like I said, I'm not counting the first 2. Kills from Jason 0, which means that his kill count for the entire series is still only at 33. Overall deaths, 63, and that is with the adjusted, me not counting the 2 kills. So we're at 63 deaths now.
Yeah, if you do count those 2, because they are technically, even though they don't exist, they're killed by Jason, it would be what, 35, 65?
Thereabouts, yeah. 35, 55, because the 10 kills in the first movie are from Pamela Voorhees.
Right.
I mean, you're asking me to do a lot of math that I haven't kept up with that closely. But yes, somewhere in the vicinity of 35-55 is Jason's kills. In this movie, Sam, what would you say is the best kill to your knowledge? And if you want, I have a list of the kills here if you want to refer to them.
My personal favorite might have to go to, it's probably like Demon getting like annihilated in the shit house.
Speared in the shit house.
Yeah, he gets it through the leg first, and then he gets it through the body, the torso. And yeah, that's my favorite, I think.
Yeah, while you're looking at them, do you want to do your least favorite?
My least favorite, and I think it agrees with your assessment, it's belt to head.
Yeah. That would be Eddie. Death number 10 on this tally list. Head crushed with a leather strap against a tree.
Yeah, it's just like it's weird. It's handled very weird, and and
it doesn't quite make much sense because, like, I could see it like if Roy is like literally like pulling it tight enough that it actually like somehow popped the top of his skull off.
Yeah,
sure. But, like, that's just going to give him a crushing headache.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well, I will say, like, the part of the skull that's the weakest, or at least the face, is probably around the eyes.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. It's the way it's staged is awkward.
Well, you were right. I do agree with you. I disagree with you with favorite kill, though. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, it is Tina, Eddie's lover, who gets garden shears to the eyes, and then he snips them so that it goes from her eye sockets and it cuts off the bridge of her nose. That's pretty fucking metal. And she's naked, so that's a bonus.
Yeah. Did you know apparently she became like a teacher?
I did not.
She apparently the actress became a teacher afterwards, and when it got out that she was not only in a Friday the 13th movie but like had nude scenes, she like lost like teaching jobs.
Yeah. I hear that teaching jobs are pretty strict with like morality of the teachers. Like back when I was doing Rocky Horror Picture Show, I had a friend who was trying to become a teacher, and she had to quit cast because she was like, if it gets out that I do Rocky Horror, which is 10 times tamer than that scene that actress is in, she could lose her job. I was like, damn. Where are we on this list? So Killing Spree. As I said, Killing Spree starts about 25 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, not counting the prologue.
Yeah, and not counting Joey's death.
Yeah.
So that's, I believe, Vinny's death is at 25 minutes 45 seconds, and it lasts approximately 42 minutes and 15 seconds because I don't count the last 3 kills. Nor would I count Roy Burns' death because he is the killer that would be doing the killing spree. Survivors? Survivors are Tommy Jarvis, Pam, and Reggie. Who plays Jason? Technically no one, but Roy Burns, the copycat Jason, is played by Dick Wyand.
Who probably plays Jason in the prologue.
Probably. I probably should have looked that up too. But
I mean, it's basically the thing about the killer in this is he basically looks like Jason, right?
Yeah.
You find out at the very end, it's conveniently Roy Burns wearing a bald cap and a Jason mask and a hockey mask, and they're like the same fucking build. It's like, yeah.
And evolution of Jason. In this movie, he's dead. That is his evolution. That is the new thing that's added to him. He's dead. In the next movie is where the evolution of Jason really kicks off, because then he becomes a supernatural being who can come back to life whenever he wants to, apparently. Sorry. I decided to look it up just in case, like the actor playing. Oh yeah, Tom Morga. Is credited as Jason Voorhees.
Stand corrected.
He is a stuntman and stunt coordinator, which typical of Jasons. They're usually stuntmen. So sorry, Tom Morga, because I know you listen. Sorry for not crediting you earlier. Weapons used in this particular Jason movie. We get, in essentially the correct order, axe, road flare, machete, hunting knife, garden shears, leather belt, spear of some sort. Because I didn't really...
It almost looks like a fucking signpost.
It probably is a signpost. The list said spear, and I couldn't make out what it was clearly while we were watching. But yeah, signpost sounds right. Meat cleaver, railroad spike, and tractor harrow. One of these days I'll learn how to say that, because that was what killed Jason in the last movie too.
It's a harrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the people we had on the main show, Cullen Bunn, writes a horror book called Harrow County.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So in the morality given by the movie series, did the victims deserve to die? Here are a list of fornicators: Lana, Tina, Eddie, Jake, and Robin. Most of those people I don't actually remember who they are, because again, this movie just kind of goes meh.
Yeah, I mean,
Tina and Eddie are
no, it's Tina and Eddie.
Tina and Eddie are the fuckers in the woods. Lana is the
fuckers in woods.
Yeah, Lana is the waitress.
Yes.
Who the reason why I added her to the list of fornicators is because one of her opening lines is she opens up her waitress uniform in the bathroom to reveal her naked breasts, and she's like, "It's showtime."
Apparently that was an ad lib, and the director's like, "Fuck it, it's that kind of movie. Let's keep it in."
Yeah, and she was probably like, "It's this kind of movie. I'll do it." Jake and Robin. Jake is the kid with the stutter.
That tries to hook up with one of the
and
it doesn't work out for him.
No. Robin, I forget who Robin is.
Robin's the one he's trying to hit on.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out for her either.
No. Maybe
so
if
she gets the classic Friday the 13th death though.
Yeah. Vinny and Pete, your greasers.
Mm-hmm.
Junior and Ethel.
The bumpkins.
Who I hated. Drug and alcohol users, Billy, who is the fucking creeper who's picking up Lana. Anita and Demon, who are Reggie's brother and his girlfriend. And then our innocents. This movie actually had a lot of innocents. Joey, Raymond, except Raymond was kind of being a peeping Tom, so I guess you could throw him in with the fornicators, but I chose that he was an innocent. Violet, the punk rocker. Duke, Matt, and George. Matt being the guy that runs the halfway house. Duke, I believe, is Reggie's grandfather, the cook, or George's.
One of the two.
Yeah,
it's either or, and then Duke is.
Duke is the fellow the other paramedic.
Yes, yeah.
George is the.
That's right, because George is technically the last person killed.
Yes.
He's just kind of thrown through.
Yeah, he had his eyes gouged out, if I remember correctly, and then he's thrown through a window. Yeah. How is the killer defeated? Again, he's impaled on a tractor harrow. And how does the killer come back? He doesn't. He did.
Yeah, we get no more Roy Burns in this. Even Pam Voorhees comes back and either as a disembodied head or a decapitated head or
hallucination.
Yeah, the hallucination.
Yeah,
but no more Roy Burns.
I am wondering if you can be Roy Burns in the video game, because they have a whole bunch of skins.
DLC.
Yeah, right. I mean, literally all it is just blue triangles instead of the red triangle, which I did like. The movie knew that it was that it was a copycat Jason, so they changed his costume up. They changed the style of hockey mask as kind of like a subtle hint that it's not Jason, it's somebody else. And so that was clever. I enjoyed that. I appreciated it. Thank you, costume designer, who I didn't look up to give you proper credit, but the viewers at home can. So that's that. That's Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Would you say this is the worst of the 5 that you've covered?
For sure.
Yeah.
I will say, as much as we've been dogging it, I actually do enjoy the cinematic style. Like, I say that Sam Raimi could be the director for it. Bless you. I don't know if the sneeze got picked up by the microphone, but bless you anyway. But I love Sam Raimi. I think Sam Raimi is one of my favorite directors, especially specifically Sam Raimi, like one of my favorite directors currently. That's still making stuff today. But also probably up there with all-time favorite directors. And like his style of silly horror is perfect. And like this movie could have been directed by him and it would have been that much better. I also joke that it feels kind of like Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, which is also a compliment in my mind.
Oh yeah, that's Grindhouse done right.
Yeah. So with a little bit more TLC, I think this movie could have been great. Maybe another couple drafts. Yeah. Don't rush it out the door.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of it was kind of dictated, like, there is a good story somewhere in A New Beginning. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they had a better Tommy Jarvis or spent more time with Tommy Jarvis, provided it was a better Tommy Jarvis, we would have got that. But I think the producer was like, kills, like, because again, it's like clockwork when people drop off.
Yeah, and there's a reason why. We watched it yesterday, and we're having trouble remembering the details between kills.
It's not particularly memorable.
Yeah.
It's almost like a point of curiosity, like, hey, what's that one Friday the 13th
artifact of our culture.
It is. Yeah, but yeah, it's almost like a point of curiosity. Like, hey, what's that like Friday the 13th movie that Jason Voorhees isn't the killer and everyone's like the first one? It's like, oh yeah, but there's another one. That's this one.
Huh?
Yeah. That's the appeal, quote unquote, of Friday the 13th Part 5.
Yeah, and yeah, it could have been good.
Yeah, and it could have been worse.
Yes, it definitely could have been worse.
Do you think? I mean, I guess you'll cover this as you progress, as you revisit this. But based on your memory now, and I guess this would be a good before and after. Yeah. Does it get worse?
It does. And I can't remember how adamant I was at the beginning of the recording of this that this is the worst in my opinion. But I now that we're talking about the upcoming ones, I remember my least favorite is actually the one with the psychic, New Blood. That's my least favorite of the series, and I have that to look forward to in about 3 months with the game, something like that.
Yeah, if you throw in the game,
it's number 7.
Yeah, which means that the June 2nd would be the game, and then so that means July would probably be Jason Lives actually.
Yeah,
and then August would be New Blood.
Yeah, and Jason Lives actually one of my favorite of this batch.
Again, the more ridiculous the series gets, the more I love it.
And also, I love badass Tommy Jarvis, and it don't get much more badass than than Jason Lives Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah, Part 6 redeems Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you can play as that Tommy Jarvis in the Friday the 13th video game and not Corey Feldman or this New Beginning Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah. Thank God.
But yeah. You just stand there looking like you're either constipated or jerking off, but you can't tell.
Yeah. Again, you can do both.
Yeah. You don't have to be doing just one. But yeah, so that's been that. Thank you, Sam, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Again, if you need me for one of the later ones, like the quote-unquote New Blood, you know where to find me.
I'll just bring Sam on for the worst ones.
It's kind of like what Jake did with the Kiss albums. He was like, does anybody want to do like Post-Lick It Up?
No.
80s Kiss? No? Well,
no.
Sam.
Hey, Sam, you want to be on the next 5?
I'll just be like, sure, because you should never go through this alone.
Yeah. All right, well, that's been that. So now we'll just sit around the campfire, sing Kumbaya, and we'll see you next summer for Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives.
Well, the video game.
Fuck. So we'll just sit around the campfire and see you next summer for Friday the 13th, the game. And by next summer, I mean next month.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.